Hello and welcome to Paul on Politics, our review of all the week's political news and analysis live on KMTV. Now, it's been another week of political cliffhangers, but somehow the Prime Minister has managed to cling on by her fingertips when some predicted she would get the push. As ever, it was the awkward issue of Brexit that dominated the headlines, and we'll be discussing if she's now on borrowed time. Also on the agenda is Manson Airport poised to take off again, and further questions about how Kent might cope after Brexit. With us to discuss these issues and more are Stuart Jeffrey of the Kent Green Party and Laura Garcia, a lecturer in journalism at the University of Kent. Thanks to both of you for joining us. First, let's remind ourselves of how Theresa May confounded those who predicted her demise and survived another bruising week as Prime Minister. Here she is defending her government's white paper and the vote thereafter.
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that he is absolutely wrong in his reference to the agreement that was reached at Chequers. I would not have gone through all the work that I did to ensure that we reached that agreement, only to see it changed in some way through these bills. They do not change that Chequers agreement. They do not change that Chequers agreement. And the minister from the dispatch box later today will be making that clear.
Well, Stuart, Prime Minister may have some faults, but she's the kind of Houdini of politics. She managed to get out of these scrapes every time. What's your assessment of her position at the end of this week?
I mean, it's an appalling mess, isn't it? I think the only reason she's hanging on is because the alternatives are even more unpalatable than letting her carry on. We're, just over 7 months before Brexit's supposed to happen. As Greens, we're very keen on a second referendum on any deal, but there's no deal, and there's new ideas coming out almost daily from her. It's a complete catastrophe we're heading towards.
Laura, how do you assess this week's activities and debate at Westminster?
Well, you only have to read the European press to get a genuine assessment of how people are viewing this from far away. It just looks like there's a complete fracture, not just only within the government, but within the opposition as well. That makes it really hard for people trying to negotiate with Theresa May's government on something that's solid and that's real and that could be actionable.
I guess the problem here is that she's got to come up with a deal which satisfies both wings of her party, and in a sense that's never going to happen. Yeah,
and all of these votes and the continuing debates just show that complete difference in opposition within her own party, and how she's trying really hard to cling to some sense of loyalty to her leadership. I think that the thing is that no one wants her job. If someone wanted it, they would have taken it already.
Stuart, you mentioned this idea of a second referendum. The Green Party is in favour of this idea. Isn't it going to be terribly confusing for people to have three options, even if it gets to a second referendum?
Well, I think people are fairly well steeped in the pros and cons of the Brexit debate, given it's dominated our news for the last 2 years. Yeah. So I think people, you're underestimating the intelligence of the public. There's a lot more information out there. People have read into it. People are understanding what they voted for last time.
But I mean, the idea, as I understand it from Justin Green, is to have three options on a referendum. I think that would just confuse people even more, wouldn't it?
Well, that's her option. I think it's a reasonable one to go for in terms of a referendum. But I think it shouldn't be down to Theresa May trying to satisfy both sides of her party. She needs to make sure she's got the will of the people behind her. And at the moment, what we're seeing is no plan, a variety of plans, or complete chaos. So put that to the people and let them have a say on it.
Laura, third referendum. God, no, we don't want one of those.
No, we've already had one.
A second referendum.
Second referendum again. We forget about the other side of the negotiating table. This isn't just about what the UK wants and what we agree to internally. It's about what the EU will accept. And the longer and longer that this drags out, the thinner and thinner their patience runs out. We only had to listen to Michel Barnier today to see that they're starting to get pretty frustrated with what's happening on this side of the channel.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It's two sides who've got a negotiation agreement, not just one. Now, something else weighing on the Prime Minister's mind is what current and former members of her government are up to. It's been revealed that Boris Johnson is still living in the official residence of the Foreign Secretary, even though he resigned from the job 2 weeks ago. Well, what do you think?
If the House is necessary for them to do their job, so he was Foreign Secretary, so the idea was he'd use the House for entertaining people that were essential for his job, so I think that's probably okay, but he isn't Foreign Secretary anymore, so he should definitely move out of it today. When Prime Ministers change, they have to move out the same day. He should have been gone the day he resigned.
I don't believe they should be given perks like houses to live in, free of charge, funded by us. Bear in mind, most of of them, including our Boriss, probably got a multi-million-pound house just down the road from where he's still living at our expense. So no, I think they should, like the rest of us, buy their own houses or rent their own houses and not get it given to them on a plate.
I think they should buy their own houses and all that, you know. Whatever trade you go into, which a politician is a trade, other people have to buy their own houses, so should politicians.
They're doing the government jobs, so because they're actually doing the government jobs, they are entitled to a house paid by the government. But if they resign, then they mustn't. If he's resigned like now, then he has to vacate from the house.
Well, Stuart, they say perception matters more than anything in politics, and this sort of thing doesn't look terribly good, does it? You know, grace and favour houses and so forth, staying in them because their multi-million-pound flat is being leased to somebody else.
Well, it plays into the whole narrative that she's got no grip on her MPs at all. The fact that he's allowed to stay in there, I believe he was using the Foreign Office car as well. I think I saw that in the papers. I mean, she needs to get a grip on her ministers and her ex-ministers and lead her party. So she's failing.
Would a Green government dispense with all these kind of little perks like grace and favour apartments and residences?
Well, I think you need somewhere to live when you're doing a job, especially a full-time job. But it shouldn't be the sort of opulence that we see up there at the moment. There is something about some fairly basic accommodation for people to work during the week close to where the job is.
Laura, the other issue which has been at the forefront of this debate is this whole thing about pairing, which might confuse some people, but you know, again, sort of breaking these kind of agreements that MPs have doesn't reflect well on the way they go about things.
No, it doesn't, and it reflects, like Stuart mentions, a lack of control of Theresa May within her own government. In her defence a little bit, the job at task is so large and so many things need her attention that I reckon Boris Johnson spending an extra 2 weeks of a joyride in the Foreign Secretary's house is not the worst of things that she's got on her plate. But it does show this lack of enforcement within the party and the system as a whole. The pairing thing, there isn't a way for Joe Swinson to go in and make a point and try and get some sort of restitution for it. There's been a half apology made, and it's more about whether the system is set on gentlemen's agreements rather than set down rules.
Quick word from Stuart.
I mean, the whole idea of pairing just plays into the concept that it's a broken democracy. We shouldn't need to have pairing. We should have electronic voting. We should have a much better democratic system than relying on the goodwill of people not to vote. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers.
And wheeling in sick people as well seems to be very inhuman. Now, away from Westminster, there's been an equally divisive vote on the possible future for Manson Airport site. Councillors decided that plans for houses on the site should be scrapped and a 2-year period should be there to allow possible options for a cargo hub airport to come forward. South Thanet's MP Craig McKinley says using Manston for cargo could be even more important now Brexit is looming. Joe Caution has more.
After a lot of back and forth, plans to bring back Manson Airport are one step closer to lift-off. Last night, Thanet's councillors voted to put airport plans back on the drawing board under Thanet's local plan. The alternative proposal was to turn the site into a mixed-use development for up to 4,000 homes, with space for business and leisure facilities. The local authority is under pressure by the government to build more than 17,000 homes over the next 20 years. So if Manston starts to operate as an airport again, these homes would need to be built somewhere else. Back in March of this year, the government intervened because of Thanet Council's failure to draw up a local plan, and this new decision will have to be reviewed by the Planning Inspectorate before it can go ahead. But for some people, reopening Manston as an airport could be one piece of the Brexit puzzle to give the South East new opportunities.
There will be more international trade going on. The country, because it's got a lack of airport capacity, is not able to offer those point-to-point routes, particularly on freight transport, and that's what Manston could actually fit, and very, very quickly, because we do need those point-to-point trade routes with China, and they don't exist at the moment because we just haven't got the capacity. So Manston could be a really key part of this jigsaw for Kent, the South East, and indeed the country.
Well, Stuart, we know the Green Party is not in favour of a third runway at Heathrow. How about backing a smaller, nice little airport in Kent?
Definitely not. Flying is one of the most polluting.
Even with these new technology planes?
Even with the new technology planes, it's one of the fastest growing emitters of CO2. It puts the CO2 right into the worst place in the atmosphere. Climate change is accelerating faster than the models predict. We're seeing extreme weather events happening at a far faster rate, including the one we're sitting in. The Arctic is incredibly hot. And why on earth would we want to be building and opening more runways?
Well, if you take HGVs off, some of HGVs off Kent roads and do air freight, that would be good for the county where Operation Stack is implemented.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we've got a real problem in terms of our general economy and the way we move goods around. But that's not dealt with by just moving them in a different way. We've got to make sure we've got localism built into our economy. And if that means we use Manston as farmland to grow food, I think that's probably quite a good idea.
Laura, quick word from you. I mean, this has been such a long-running saga without an end. I mean,
well, and it just goes to show the really tricky balance and the conflict that there is between the government's targets that they're imposing on local authorities and what local authorities can actually deliver, and the people who live around them what they want. This has been a back and forth through different administrations in the Thanet Council, through different administrations at a national level, and that's where the conflict comes from. Okay, well, like the debates, it's going to go on. So when we come back, are we heading for Operation Stack gridlock, and who do you trust on crime figures? Welcome back to Paul on Politics, live on KMTV with guests Stuart Jeffrey and Laura Garcia. Now,
You may be a little fed up of hearing about the potential threat of gridlock in Kent after Brexit, but the issue is not going away. This week, government auditors said the new plan called Operation Brooke would not be ready in time for Brexit. But for one lorry park in Ashford, there's good news. Harry Pete reports.
A sight that's becoming all too common and also a pain for residents and drivers in Kent. Lorries parked on hard shoulders and in built-up areas. But now those HGV drivers stuck without a place to park have been given a boost as Ashford Borough Council have agreed to increase the size of the international truck stop in the town. The building work on the huge site could start as soon as next month, with shops, housing and commercial units all part of the Waterbrook plans. But it's these new spaces that could prove to be the most crucial piece of building work.
It's fantastic news, not only for sort of drivers that need to park, it's fantastic news for Kent with Brexit sort of looming and not knowing what's going to happen with it. And it's fantastic news for us as a business. We're still sitting at 98.9% capacity on a nightly basis and still turning away hundreds of trucks. So, you know, these guys will have a place now to sit a day, stay overnight, you know, have facilities, rest properly, you know, and, you know, get up in the morning and drive safely through the roads.
The expansion of the truck stop could go a long way to helping Kent's parking problems, but those in the industry know that even these extra 300 spaces still have a long way to go to solve that issue. It's now a race against time for the spaces to be built and Operation Brooke to be finalised to keep the M20 and Kent's roads flowing post-Brexit. Harry Pete for KMTV in Ashford.
Well, Stuart, we know the Green Party is not keen on more freight travelling on roads, but in the short term there has to be some kind of solution just in case things go awry next March after Brexit.
I think if things go right after Brexit next March, a few hundred extra lorry park spaces is going to be inconsequential. The predictions are there'll be lorries stacked right back around the M25. So, I mean, it does come back to the significant problem we've got with our economy because it is completely unsustainable. You know, we can put more stuff onto rail, which is probably a good thing, but ultimately, as I said earlier, we've got to localise a lot of the work, a lot of the production that happens, so that we're producing stuff locally, so we're not shifting it backwards and forwards across the channel.
Well, I mean, they have started work on these alterations, but there seems to be some suggestion that they're operating on such a timetable, whatever contingency plans they have for this contraflow system is simply not going to be ready and available.
Well, yeah, it looks like it could be a real mess. As I say, the long-term solution has to be get the freight off the roads by a combination of bringing people in, the economy in much more local.
Laura, it does sometimes seem that Kent gets the kind of the wrong end, the sharp end of everything that's going wrong rather than everything that's going right. You know, being the peninsular county, we ought to be maximising opportunities from being nearest to Europe.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what Stuart is mentioning of how now business has gotten used to trading things back and forth because we're so close. It was very easy to integrate production streams and to integrate markets and where you sold things and where you made them. I think if by force of Brexit people are going to have to think about how do we produce things in the UK locally and sell them locally as well, the rules around small businesses have to be reconsidered to make it easier for people to adapt. Particularly for Kent, this is a problem that stood well beyond Brexit and before it ever happened, and people had just been pushing it off and pushing it off. And now it just happens that Brexit has happened on top of everything else. Now,
Stuart, Kent County Council has floated the idea of government-funded lorry parks, so the government produces the cash up front and allows these lorry parks to be built. Is that something you'd support?
Well, no. I mean, clearly, all we're doing is a mitigation on a problem, and a mitigation that will put.
Yeah, but there has to be something, doesn't there? I mean,
we have.
What I'm trying to get to, what would your solution be in the short to immediate term?
In the very short to medium term, we need to get some of that freight onto rail. That is the very rapid solution. The second rapid solution is we've got to stop shifting the stuff backwards and forwards across the channel. We've got to localise our economy, and we've got to do it very quickly. For that variety of reasons, whether it's Brexit, whether it's the environment, or whether it's actually our lack of local manufacture.
Quick word from Laura. I mean, is this the kind of equivalent of the Millennium Bug Scarorama that happened in turn of the new century?
Well, yes and no, and then you just have to look back at 2015 and how bad it was then to think about how bad it could be again.
Yeah, but it's not been in place since 2015.
No, you're right, it hasn't. But the lack of clarity around the Brexit negotiations and everything comes back to Brexit on both sides of the channel as well. We don't know how it's going to play out. We don't know how the French might react. We don't know what happens if there's a no deal in place. And all of those things just make it a little bit more possible. It's not a certainty, but more possible. Well,
like every other issue to do with Brexit, this one's not going to go away, we suspect. Now, new crime figures suggest that many suspects are not brought before the courts. Hundreds of suspected criminals in Kent have had their cases dismissed, despite Kent Police identifying their crimes. Here's Joe Caution.
Kent Police was the worst force in the country for crimes dropped. 41% of crimes reported in the county were later dismissed, despite a suspect being identified.
We need to do a few things. One is we do need to prevent crime from taking place. We need to make sure that we're better supporting victims and that there is some understanding of what is lying behind a lot of these statistics. And particularly in cases of fraud where the investigation can be quite complex and things don't proceed because there might be a perpetrator abroad or they just cannot find anyone.
Breaking down the numbers to the end of 2017, half of the cases where suspects were identified were dismissed because of witnesses failing to appear in court and not wanting to testify. The Police and Crime Commissioner has stressed the figures aren't as bad as they look and ensures Kent Police are doing all they can to support victims. But it's not enough for some.
I think it's too little too late. Probably 95% of the residents within Gillingham now are turning around and saying that, well, Matthew Scott's not doing his job properly. Let's get rid of him and get somebody else who's going to stand up for the people.
Well, it's not about me personally. This is, for me, is about making sure that victims feel confident enough to come forward and that they're getting the services that they need. These statistics help uncover trends. They help us look at where we can allocate resources better, and I can hold Kent Police and other agencies to account, which is my role. So statistics like this, what they might be uncomfortable for politicians sometimes, do actually help focus efforts into the areas that might need improvement.
Updated figures are expected imminently, but reports suggest that there won't be any change in the amount of Kent cases being dropped. It means hundreds of crimes will go unpunished in 2018. Joe Caution for KMTV.
Well, Stuart, these figures will worry a lot of people, but it's very difficult actually pinning down the accurate data in terms of crime generally, isn't it? There's two sets of figures that the government refers to.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the crime surveys, which generally are felt to be quite robust, and the police figures. Yeah, you're right in terms of that they sometimes get attacked for people not reporting and so forth. I mean, the idea that Kent isn't following up crimes, though, is really very worrying. And
well, if they lack the evidence and there's no way of pursuing prosecutions, then it would be a waste of time, wouldn't it, if they pursued some of these?
Well, and I could accept that as an excuse if we were in line with the rest of the country, but we're an outlier here. So what is going wrong in Kent that isn't going wrong in other forces?
Laura, any idea what's going wrong in Kent and not elsewhere? But maybe it's just because it's a large county and there's a big population.
Well, that's part of it. And again, not to bring it back to Brexit, but there's a lot of things that are related to crime in the county that have to do with our proximity to Europe, that have to do with our proximity to London as well. There's been lots written about how
migrants in HGVs, for example.
Migrants in HGVs, gangs from London coming down to Kent. There's a burden on Kent Police as well to pitch in when there's big events in London. So last week when Trump was in London, a bunch of officers from Kent Police had to go and do that up in London, which means that it restricts their availability to do policing properly in the county. It's not an excuse, but it's one of many factors putting pressure on the police.
You're nodding your head in disagreement there.
I'm shaking my head in disagreement. No, I mean, all the forces have this reciprocal arrangement where they supply troops to things like the Trump rally. So I don't think these are valid excuses. We should be following this stuff up. And I think there's a real failure going on in terms of Kent Police. We've seen knife crime figures come out today. There's a huge national rise, but Kent is one of the biggest rises in the country.
I mean, are you worried that possibly come Brexit there'll be a rise in the kind of hate crime that was identified shortly after the Brexit referendum result came?
Absolutely. I mean, we all witnessed it. It was a huge national phenomenon, and it'll happen again. And the entire rhetoric around Brexit Brexit and the media rhetoric that we see from some of the red tops it is fueling this, and we do need to tackle it as a society.
OK, well, moving on, the weather has been rather nice recently, and the heat wave is apparently set to continue. And it's that time of the year when high-profile politicians have to pose awkwardly for pictures before they head off for the Tuscan Hills or Cornwall or even Kent. They won't be back at Westminster until October, so should there be shorter holidays for our politicians? Go straight in there. MPs will always tell you, well, it's not a holiday, I'm doing my constituency work. But do you think that's the case?
I mean, the fact that they do have large breaks. Gosh, they want on holiday together. Fantastic.
Perhaps they should go on holiday together. That might be a way of sorting out all the issues.
Yes, there is a piece about some of the constituency work. The fact that they get to write novels. I think my old MP wrote a novel or two while she was an MP. You know, normal people don't get that length of time to do that, to make those.
Quick word from Laura. How about them all going off on holiday together?
Well, it sounds like the nightmare teal building of exercises of my dreams that I don't want to think about. But
I'm afraid we've lodged it in your memory.
Yeah, thanks for that.
OK, well, I'm afraid that's all from us here at Paul on Politics. Thanks to our guests, Stuart Jeffrey and Laura Garcia, for coming in to help us out discuss the major issues of the week. We'll be back soon, and in the meantime, you can catch up on all the latest political news by logging on to kentonline.co.uk, listening to me, or listening to KMFM, or listening to me. I've got that wrong. Following me on Twitter at Paul on Politics. Have a great day. Thank you.